Hey guys, welcome back to the Lorcana Beehive. This is the Lore Lowdown, and this week we've got episode 10. This is all about DLC Richmond. We're going to talk about the drama, we're going to talk about the metagame, we're going to talk about all things. Me and Justin were both at Richmond, so we have on-hand experience. So I think it's going to be a great episode, so tune in. Justin, you want to start us off with some of the drama that you encountered as a judge there?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to jump straight into it. First, before we get going, Kevin can't make it this week. Obviously, he's doing some family time things, so we're going to give him a break on that one. He obviously deserves to spend time with his family. We love Lorcana, but family is first, right? We saw that this last
Absolutely.
weekend. We'll have time to shout that out too. Some really cool stuff that happened locally too. But yeah, let's talk about the DLC. Let's talk about some really crazy stuff that happened. I think ultimately the thing I can take away from the DLC is that people are starting to understand takebacks. People are starting to get them. And it's really exciting to see that happening real time. Some of the things that I think is really important to talk about with the takebacks is just how it's going to continue to evolve, but we have some very clear verbiage right now. And Ravensburger has given clear guidance on that same clear verbiage. And the TLDR on it, read the documents that I posted from Judge Phil and the documents that I posted from Googly Glimmers. Both of them have a firm grasp on what a takeback is supposed to be. There was even some level of disagreement between judges to where I even told the judge, I was like, I think you're wrong on this takeback policy situation. And ultimately, they contacted Ravensburger and found out that, yes, in fact, that judge was wrong. I was right. There's things that are happening within the community. And I think the best way I can describe it is if you're coming from Magic, please throw Magic brain into the bucket while you're playing Lorcana. like, it's not the same. So,
Yeah, I've actually heard that sentiment a couple of times. Like you gotta throw some of it out the window and only retain what matters for this game specifically.
right. There's a lot of trying to convert, because in Magic, if you do something, your opponent can say, yes, the stack resolves. And that's
Yeah.
considered additional information. What they're trying to convert with Lorcana is they say, oh, I'm going to challenge into this character and I expect it to be banished. But then if your opponent says, no, it's not banished because of resist, or no, it's not banished because of whatever factor, that is quote unquote additional information, which is not true. Anything
Right.
that's public on the play area, no matter how you're reminded of it, is not additional information. It is public space data, right?
Well, I think what's handy to know the difference, right? Why one is additional information that matters and one is additional information that really is just public information
Mm-hmm.
is in Magic you have cards that can resolve on your turn that are come from your opponent's hand, right? You have counter spells, you have instant actions, whereas Lorcana does not have those yet. I will say
Yep.
caveat yet.
Yep.
Maybe they will. Who knows? But because you're like in Magic in that same situation, if your opponent says no, the stack resolves, that means they did not play an instant action. So that is additional information. Your opponent would not have responded to your action. So taking that back has now granted you the knowledge that your opponent would not respond. And that matters a lot because now you can play a whole different line knowing your opponent doesn't have a counter or something.
Right.
Where in Lorcana, it's just, well, yeah, your guy would have not have, or you had resist or the character would not be banished. That's not additional information. That's just information that you should have known. And to take back in that situation doesn't it doesn't change like what line your opponent could have stopped, you know?
Right. So the other thing that's important to note about the take back policy, we're supposed to have something inked by Ravensburger before Ghent. That is the
Mm-hmm.
official statement from Ravensburger, from everybody, is that we're supposed to have an official tournament document that includes a take back section before Ghent. So keep
Cool.
an eye out for that. Obviously, Sam, you're headed to Ghent, so
Mm-hmm.
make sure you
I'll
have
be there.
that. Review those documents. We'll obviously cover them exhaustively on the Lore Lowdown here because everybody's got to understand them. And something that I did with the Oasis set champs, and it never really came to fruition, but I think I'm going to try to do this more often and just work with my TOs when I'm judging, is we can talk about takebacks. Whether or not the TO of each tournament wants to allow takebacks is going to be up to them always. But
Sure.
I want to keep on talking about it. I think it's important for us to keep on talking hey, would this be possible as a take back? I have an example of a take back that I personally denied during DLC Richmond where A player, he had inked a card, exerted 5, played an Elsa, and had exerted one of his opponent's characters, and then said, "Actually, I didn't want to ink that card. I wanted to ink a different card." Now, so what I did with this was I sat down with him and said, "Okay, so let's talk about the last things you did. You inked a card, you played a character, you exerted a character." And I said, "Okay, so you want to perform a take back?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Great. So you can return that Elsa to your hand." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Great. Now your take back is complete. What do you want to do next?" And he said, "Oh, well, I wanted to take back the ink." That's not part of the take back. The take back was the Elsa because that's the last thing you did. So what's the next step? And he's like, "Well, I guess I'm just going to replay the Elsa then." And I was like, "All right, sounds good." So it when you break it down that way, it's very simple, but it's easy to like misunderstand. Like, "Oh, I had a brain fart and I didn't want to ink this character." It goes back to what we talked about last episode, sequencing. I'm going to do a thing. Think about it once you've done it. Ink this card.
Yep.
Did I want to do that? Yes, I wanted to do that. Exert these cards, play this character. Did I want to do that? Yes, I wanted to do that. Move on, right? But yeah, it is so simple to create that, cadence in your brain to make sure that you're following this policy to its fruition, and to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of grace when you're in the moment, because sometimes you're just going and you just do a thing and you're like, that was dumb. And so that's what the takebacks are for, right?
Yeah, I had spoken last week that I didn't think, like for myself in a tournament, I couldn't think of a lot of times where something would have been taken back, right? And I mean that in the fact that my opponents often don't need a take back, right? And I was wondering how it would feel now that takebacks are actually just a legal action you can take, right? Within reason. And I myself performed one take back the entire tournament between all 3 days and 3 events, right? And it only happened one other time for an opponent as well. So between all 3 days, I had a take back and an opponent had one take back. And they were both really, really simple, easy to resolve. Hey, can I ink a different card? Yes. That was basically it. It was never like we have to change the board state, or it was always just an ink. Or I had one in the core constructed on Sunday. It was a 3-round little tournament. One person played a Scrooge, discarded a card, and said, "Hey, can I discard a different card?" I said, "Yes." And that was it. That was the only interaction with takebacks I had the entire weekend. However, I watched some games where people were taking back things like crazy. And I don't know if they're trying to, like, I don't know, they just play before they think, and then they have the take back policy to, like, is it a safety net, or if it's just, I don't even know if you can really take advantage of takebacks in this game. Like in Magic you can, but in this, like, there's no angle shooting. There's just not, unless your opponent's just getting super on tilt that you keep taking things back. That's like the only way you can quote unquote angle shoot, right, in this game. I just don't think it happens that much. So
well, I think I think the one thing that is, I had one player that was frustrated because earlier in the game they had a missed trigger that their opponent did not allow to be solved, right? Which, I mean, takebacks can only be allowed by a lore guide. If you're having a takeback happen, call a lore guide don't just assume because you think it's the right thing to do. Call the lore guide just to make sure. But basically, earlier in the game, the player had missed a trigger. His opponent said, "No, you can't do that." And then later in the game, his opponent did something that he wanted to take back. And so it's super important to understand that a missed trigger cannot be taken back. If it's a missed trigger and it's a May trigger, that's not happening. You're not going to be able to take that back. It's just assumed that you missed that trigger, that you denied that trigger. If it's a required trigger and you miss it, then it's up to your opponent whether or not you can add that trigger to the bag right then. So that still kind of falls into like a take back-ish category, but in reality, it's written into the PCGs as a missed trigger, not a take back. So with this situation, the player had done something, missed a trigger. His opponent said, no, you already missed that trigger. You can't do that. And then later in the game, his opponent did something, and they wanted to take it back, and the player got tilted because he was like, what the heck? This sucks because I didn't get to solve my mistake, and they get to solve their mistake, and it's written into the rules, which, it sucks. I think the key there, though, is just understanding that, making a mistake when you ink a card or making a mistake when you play a card, is very different than being like, I have this trigger on my card and I have to remember to resolve it. So that was one situation that was like, but it like goes to the overarching theme of takebacks, hopefully inspiring a little bit of grace to where,
Yeah.
as a lore guide, I can't officially say this, but I can say, if it's me in the situation where someone misses a trigger and they're like, dang it, I'd really like that trigger to be possible for me, I'm probably going to allow them to just do the trigger, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what, we caught it early enough. Now it's like two turns later, I'm going to be like, no, you missed that trigger. Like, that's not going to
Mhm.
happen. But like, I think it's just that conversion of player thought to say, I want to beat you at your best. I don't want to beat you at your worst. You know, I want us all to have fun playing the game, but I want to also get the same thing back to me too. So
Yeah.
I think it's both.
And I think both of those scenarios you just stated too are like solved by education,
Mm-hmm.
just like furthering like as long as we have this take back rule set going forward, we just the more you talk about it, the more players understand. The more players understand, the better the games get. Like it just feeds off of each other. So talking about it, like implementing the take backs where we can, and not doing it in a way that feels scummy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
To that point, right? The guy's coming back after he just denied a thing for his opponent, and he's not taking advantage, but he's using the game rules to ensure he gets the take back in comparison. Like, if it was me in that particular situation, we already missed the trigger. I've already denied him the miss trigger.
Yeah.
I probably won't have the audacity to ask for the take back in that situation. I'm probably just going to be like, hey, you know what? I screwed up. My bad. Let's move on. Because it just feels like a dick move, kind of, right? Like to be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you didn't get your thing, but I'm going to get my thing because mine's in the rules, you know? And like,
But I think the more we talk about it too, and the more it's like implemented and people just do it and talk about it, I think those interactions will become fewer. I
yeah,
think more people will realize, yeah, a miss trigger is different than a
yeah,
like a take back. And
very
they'll
much.
understand why. At the CCQ in Vegas a few weeks before Richmond, I did have a miss trigger thing happen in one of my games where me and my opponent playing against Blue Steel, they had a Goliath on board, and I did not discard down to 2 cards.
Mm,
So the miss trigger, what ended up happening in that was it was still my opponent's turn. So what I did was I just discarded a card
mm-hmm,
from my hand. Now my opponent didn't like. It sucked for my opponent because the judge was like, "You just have to discard a card," and I was like, "Well, my opponent's not going to know if it was the card I drew for turn or,
mm-hmm,
you know, whatever." And he's like, "Well, that's just how we have to resolve this." And my opponent was fine with it,
mm.
luckily. So those things are different than takebacks, and
Well, that's funny
it's
because
it's good to
technically,
understand why.
if we want to go technicals from like the mistrigger PCG situation, they
Hmm.
should have asked you if you wanted to discard
Yeah,
technically, because in the end of the day, it's a mistrigger for your opponent. You get to decide if it goes in the bag right then.
interesting.
And so if you said no,
I could have just said no.
you could have just said no.
That's
It's the
crazy.
same thing. You remember the judge call that they had with Jacob in the finals at the CCQ in Salt Lake City, where
Yeah.
not the finals, the semifinals,
Hmm.
where they missed the discard off of a Basil, and they said, "All right, well, it's your choice whether or not that Basil trigger enters the bag right now." Talking to Jacob, and Jacob
Hmm.
said, it's conference weekend. I'll go ahead and add it to the bag." And so
Wow.
it was pretty funny. It was a pretty funny situation. But yeah, like technically in that scenario, the judge was wrong.
Yeah, I
But
was able to just discard a card. Like the card I drew for turn and the card I discarded was Diablo. So I was like Diablo one drop. So it's like it makes no difference to me, but I'm pretty sure my opponent saw that and was like, oh, that's gotta like he just discarded the worst card in his hand. It's like I was trying to be as honest as I could. I'm sorry, buddy.
yeah, like, my bad guy.
You just have to trust me.
Trust me, it was the card. But yeah, it's tough. There's not a lot you can do with it. I don't know. Some people would weaponize it, but ultimately that's how the mistriggers have to be applied, is that the opponent of the person who owns the trigger would decide whether or not it enters the bag at that moment. And if it doesn't enter the bag, then it doesn't resolve. And if it does enter the bag, then it does resolve. And they would also have the ability to upgrade that from a caution to a warning in that scenario if, for example, it was detrimental to the player. So if you were to say, I don't want to add it to the bag right now, then they would probably issue you a warning in that situation, because discarding a card is usually bad. So
Yeah.
that'd be kind of the approach that they would do that. And vice versa, if like it was a trigger that you would draw a card, then they would probably issue your opponent a warning in that situation saying like, hey, you got to remind your opponent of their trigger to be able to draw a card.
Right.
And, you know, because you didn't do that, you're going to get a warning because it's detrimental to you for your opponent to draw cards.
Right.
So there's stuff like that. But that's always judge discretion. So that actually segues super good into the next bit about takebacks and about judging in general and, you know, lore guiding is judge discretion. This is a huge thing that I think judges all need to own and embrace their own discretion. They need to own the fact that they made a choice based on what information that they made the choice of, and they need to clearly state why they made that choice, clearly state what their discretionary thinking is, so that the players understand that yes, in the PCGs, per your discretion, it does work this way. And there's the best example we had. We had a take back that was issued against Zach Bivens. The player had performed what the judge interpreted as out of order sequencing when they did a boost on their Flynn Rider and then passed turn. When they got done with that, Zach went to draw a card, looks at the card, sees a card, which technically is irrelevant in all this because the card he draws for turn doesn't change if the take back doesn't occur, right? Like this all, as much as like that, yeah, that's technically new information. It was going to be the same information no matter what. There was nothing on the board that was going to prevent Zach from drawing a card. None of that. So, anyways, so basically what had happened was the judge ruled that because the player had performed boost Flynn Rider pass, because they were like, according to the judge, and this, I talked to the judge that made the initial ruling, they took the top card from their deck and were putting it under the Flynn Rider while they were saying boost and while they were exerting their ink. So they're doing like all of this simultaneously. They go boost Flynn Rider pass, and because they did it so close, the judge interpreted that as out of order sequencing, and so they said, all right, we can perform this take back and you can unboost your Flynn Rider. That was what the player wanted to do, was unboost their Flynn Rider. And so that's what they did.
Did they want to take a different action, or did they unboost and still boost past turn?
They still just passed turn. Unboosted and still just passed turn.
The only thing they wanted to do was unboost.
That was it.
Okay.
So that was it. And the way that the judge had said it, and I kind of feel bad for her because when I was talking to her about it, she seemed pretty distraught because Zach Bivens was pretty upset about it. He appealed it. The appeal judge had ruled the same way, saying that it was out of order sequencing and allowed the boost to be undone. But there was obviously some level of frustration. And when I talked to the judge that made the initial ruling, I had explained, I was like, listen, you have to own the fact that you thought that that was out of order sequencing. You have to clearly state that to the player that you're doing this for. Because if you do, that solves the whole, I disagree. I don't, like, we can't do this because there's been multiple actions and da-da-da, right? I just told you about a take back that I denied because it was multiple actions. But the difference being that if that player that I denied the take back for had gone ink play Elsa, I could have interpreted that as out of order sequencing. And the fact that this was on stream and the judges were able to literally review the stream to confirm their feelings about whether or not it was out of order sequencing. It was like a perfect example of, you're watching an NFL game and a referee says that's a catch versus that's not a catch, right? Like it's up to the referee's discretion in that moment to say and then what they believe.
But on stream you can review later. But I do have a question. Let me ask you this.
Go for it.
If in the same scenario, if the person who boosted their Flynn Rider and ended turn wanted to unboost and then use their ink for a different action, would that have been allowed in that take back scenario? So I boost an intern. That's an out of order sequencing. What if I, instead of boosting, or instead of using my ink to boost, I wanted to play a 2-drop? Would that have been within the realm of takeback, or because he intern, would it be you can unboost an intern or you can boost an intern? Is there a difference between those two things? Because in my mind, when I think about this, I'm like, well, if all you want to do was unboost, I wouldn't think I would have had the interaction that Zach Bibbins had. I've been like, okay, yeah, you can just as long as you're ending turn, I don't care what you do, right?
Why
But if
would
you
you
wanted
unboost a
to,
Flynn Rider? Like that was the thing
yeah,
like I was like,
yeah,
why are we unboosting a Flynn Rider to begin with? That doesn't make any sense.
like the whole scenario just seems like inconsequential to me.
Yeah.
But if the opponent was then like, no, I actually wanted to play a different card and then end turn, I would have been like, I don't know. What if it's an Ursula? What if it's like that's like way different to me? But because all he wanted to do was just not boost, I feel like that's reasonable. But question still stands: if he wanted to play a different card, would it still be out of order sequencing, and would the take back be allowed?
I mean, I think once you've decided that the take back is allowed, technically the player can do whatever they want. So the take back is not allowed in a scenario where there's like a caveat for it, right? Like
Gotcha.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, you can take this back as long as you're just passing turn. Like, no, I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna issue a take back, I'm gonna issue a whole take back, which is like a light rewind effectively.
Sure.
Because then they pull back their ink, or they
so the game reverted to him paying the ink to boost, right?
Right. It would revert.
That's what it did. Point. Was the card went back on top of the deck, and he had the ink remaining. Okay.
Right.
And that's where the game resumed.
And that's where the game resumed for this particular interaction, right? And if you guys want to look at it, go review the stream for Zach Bivens. I think it was like round 2 or something. But it was one of those moments where this is where the judges have a very big part to play in the takebacks.
Yeah, I can see how either way it could spark some drama, right? I can see Zach Bivens' reaction. Like I can understand why.
Yeah.
But also as a player who I just kind of studied up on takebacks in general, just because I feel like they're one, really cool and healthy and unique to this game.
Right.
But also because I wanted to understand what would happen to me if my opponent does something crazy, right? I need to know. I want to know, like, do I need to call a judge in this moment? Like, what's going on here? And the answer to that is you call a judge every time. But like sometimes it's I don't know. I think there's scenarios where a judge call is not necessary, just for if both players are like, I don't know. As a player, you understand a rhythm to a game, and if you disrupt that rhythm, it's kind of there's no need for it. So
I think if there's any question mark in your mind at all, right? Like, say,
correct, yeah. If there's just a question at all,
so confident, and you're like, I know that this is going to be an allowed take back. I feel confident that it's going to be allowed take back. I'm going to allow this take back. Like, if I'm ever playing a game and someone wants to do a take back, I'm going to tell them whether or not I believe it's going to be allowed for a take back myself, right? And then if a judge call is necessary at that point where they're like, oh, I disagree with you, cool, let's call a judge, that's fine. If there's any questions in the mind, call a judge. But if there's no questions in the mind, and as we understand this policy more, sure, like, start to get to that point where it's a give and take, we're working together to get to the end of this game, right?
Like in my examples earlier, when I was talking about I inked the wrong card, caught it immediately, said, hey, can I ink a different card? Now, I understand 100% of the time, the judge comes over, says, yeah, you can ink that card.
Right.
That nothing else has happened, yes, you can ink that card. That's going to happen 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what judge you get, judge discretion, that's out of this scenario. Yeah, so in that instance, I was like, do we need to call a judge? And we both agreed no. Yeah. And I think that is a healthier question than just skipping it all entirely. Just the question, do we need to call a judge, is probably just like handles every dispute you could have, right? If there's a question mark, somebody will say yes.
Yep. And that's the key with it, is just, if you feel like it's not there, then call a judge over. But the lore guides absolutely need to own their choices. They need to own their discretionary situations, because if they don't, that's where the confusion comes into play. That's where the frustration from players comes into play. Is like, hey, I know the rules are X, but you're telling me the rules are Y. I need to understand how you got from X to Y. And that's what the judges have to do. The lore guides owe that to the players. That, hey, this is where my brain is taking this interaction. That way the player can say, all right, let me see if I can put myself in your shoes and understand from your point of view why you got from X to Y. And then it just creates, it's how you disarm a conflict, right? That's how you fundamentally disarm a conflict, is you try to get yourself into that other person's headspace. And so it's tough. I talked to the judge that made the ruling, or the lore guide that made the ruling. She seemed like super distraught. She was upset. And I'm like, listen, just breathe. It's okay. You made a good call. And I was like, there's no one that can tell you that your opinion on out of order sequencing is quote unquote wrong in the moment. Mm-hmm. You believe that it was out of order sequencing. You issued,
like, you watched the play happen. You were there. You experienced it. You said it was out of order sequencing. I think that is like as clear cut as it could possibly be.
Right. And that's how it has to be played. And then from there, players, when a judge tells you that, if you disagree, you just appeal it. And then if the appeals judge also gives you the same ruling, that's kind of your sign to say, hey, I guess it was out of order sequencing.
Yeah, I guess I was wrong. I need to rethink my understanding of this.
Yeah.
Like either this situation or the rules in general. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it goes, is you have to find those scenarios. You know, I've seen, like, I was online chatting with somebody the other day, oh, well, if you call a judge over, always take their ruling. And I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you call a judge over and you disagree with the ruling, please.
I've heard some, in my times playing card games, I've heard some crazy stuff, man. Like sometimes judges are wilding. Like they just don't understand, or like, I don't know. But I've only appealed to a head judge maybe like 3 or 4 times in my entire life. Yeah. But all 3 times I was like, you're crazy right now, man.
Yeah, there's something else happening in your brain. I cannot track. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, being a judge being a lore guide it's not rocket science, but the key to being a good lore guide is communication. It is saying what you're thinking. Because if you just tell somebody that's the way it is, and that's the way it is, and you try to get all like resistive and pushy about it, then that's when the players will start to obviously not have a good interaction with you. And I mean, I had a terrible interaction at the DLC. I think it was the last round of day 1, and it was a player that was in the valley, right? They already had their 3 wins for their Mulan, but they weren't going to make day 2, right? So they were just they were in no man's land, right? Like just playing a game to play a game. And I was talking with another judge, and I hear this judge call, and I turn around, and the player sitting next to him was kind of like goofing off and like laughing around. It seemed like it was his buddy. And then the one player was like, hey, judge, I shuffled my mulligan into my deck before I drew cards. And I thought they were all just kind of goofing around. And so I was like, well, that sucks. It was the worst, like, most catty response that I've ever had with the player. And he, like, looks at me with, like, terror in his eyes of, like, what do I do, though? I don't know what to do. And I looked down and I was like, oh, he's only got 3 cards. Oh, you just have to draw. No, that's it. Like, you have no solution. Sorry, bud. It was funny.
The dream response, if you would have continued just being, like, joking around, too, would have been like, you start with 3 cards, man. Sorry.
Well, it's funny.
And then just come back and be like, no, this is what you do.
It was funny because I was like just such a catty. I was like, I'm so sorry. That was like the most catty response ever. I did not mean to do that. Let's fix the problem. And like his friend that was sitting next to him was like, no, keep it up. This is hilarious. So it was good times. But you know, it was funny because he's in no man's land, and you know, as a judge, you kind of get to that spot where you understand what the players are playing for. And so if you get this crazy judge call, it's like this huge rewind, and it's between 2 players that already have their Mulans and they're not making day 2, you're like, you
gain nothing from whatever the game. Yeah. You win or lose, nothing happens. Yeah.
You're kind of like, hey, let's play the game. Let's just move on. I understand that you guys are having fun, and you know, this is not one of those situations where we need to get crazy with the judge call, but it was just funny because I just had the most catty response to him.
Yeah, in that scenario too, like shuffling your mulligan into your deck, it feels like it would be so intuitive. You're like, oh, that's got to be hard to resolve, right? But no, it's not. It's draw. Literally way worse for the player who mulligan. They just can draw the same cards, so they just draw 4 more cards, and then that's what they get, and it sucks.
I can't unshuffle.
It's just
your
way
deck,
worse.
Right?
Yeah, it's just so bad.
You're gonna tell me this?
Like, don't do that because your mulligan's gonna be way worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I've done it myself. My kid's done it. My wife's done it.
I've done it at a set champ. Like, oops.
we've all made that mistake. So just
I just draw 4 and they could be really bad.
and I mean, it's one of those situations where you're what an eighth round, you've been playing for dang near 12 hours. You're exhausted and you just do a thing and you're like, why did I do that? And it was just funny because everybody seemed like they were joking around. We were all kind of goofing off, and he's like, I shuffled my mulligan into my deck, and I was like, that sucks.
That sucks.
All right, well, I mean, with that in mind, should we jump into breaking down this DLC metagame? What does this mean,
Let's
Sam?
do it.
Like, what did we think about this? I thought it was. I don't know if I was surprised by the representation of the different decks, but it seems like it was pretty well what we expected to be, except for maybe just a little lighter on the dogs, right?
Yeah, we were talking about it. The Tiggers that went, we were talking about what we expected the breakdown to be, and I think we got almost every single color combination correctly. Mm-hmm. It was like maybe the highest deviation was like a 1 to 2% difference. So we were pretty spot on with what we expected to see, but it can be surprising if you're just taking like a first look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were on X or Twitter, any point you might have been like, well, dogs should have been higher, right? But I think that on paper sounds really good, but dogs, you've got to understand what the deck is and what it's trying to achieve, and then you understand why you might see players opt out of it. But yeah, the meta shakeup, the conversion rate was really surprising to me. What people played, not necessarily too surprising, but the conversion rate into top 128 and top 32, that was crazy to me. Right. I think Blue Green and Blurple were the top 2 in conversion rate, right? Blurple, I'm just surprised. That deck is so it does so much, and then if one thing doesn't go your way, it just goes so wrong. So shout out to all the Blurple players. They must have insane lists, I think. DKP, shout out to him. I thought his tournament was over when he played Omar at X2, like round 5, right? I was like, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden he's in top 8. So
that's nuts.
Yeah.
I think watching these conversion rates, right, like you can see some interesting trends here. Like you can see dogs slowly become a higher representation of the meta. You can see Amethyst Steel starts at huge representation of the meta and then slowly goes down as you see Blue Green take over. And it is just like you can kind of see this like rock paper scissors situation happening, right? Where some of these decks start to lose their representation, and others that counter those decks gain their representation across the 2 days. And it was just really, I don't know, it was really interesting to see. I'm vindicated, I personally feel, because I still believe Blue Green is best deck, and this is the first time that I've actually been correct about that, because last time I was talking about how Amethyst Steel was terrible, and then Frank was just like, hold my Lorcana card. So
hold these 1-ofs, buddy.
Yeah, hold these 1-ofs, my guy. So yeah, I think it's very interesting to see that. I think Am Steel in a larger tournament it gets just completely chewed up by these larger decks.
It's very consistent deck, right?
Right.
That's why it was the most played deck on day 1, is because it's very consistent.
Yep.
You can beat everything, but it's going to have a terrible conversion rate for the exact same reasons as everybody's playing it. You want your deck, if you want to win the tournament, you have to beat Purple Steel every time you play it, right? So the decks that beat Purple Steel, it's no surprise that they have the highest conversion rate into top 32, right? Like Blurple and Blue Green both just absolutely wail on Purple Steel. So it's not really a surprise when those 2 decks start. And then Blue Green, even you take it a step further, it also beats the Blurple. So
well, and the thing
that's why you get like the 30% conversion rate into top 32.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Blue Green and why it was represented in the finals, right? Why it was a mirror match in the finals. And you look at those 2 decks, and they kept saying it before they started the finals, they were 2 cards off, right? They were the same deck minus 2
59 cards.
Yep. So when you look at that piece of it, and you're like, okay, well, they made a choice to really, with this Blue-Green list, they made the choice, and they said, listen, if I go up against dogs, I'm just losing. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they chose. And you can see it in their list. You can see that they have a strategy, but that strategy is not tuned towards fighting off aggro. That strategy is tuned towards, I am going to do the best that my deck knows how to do. and make sure that I position myself well for the mirror, which ultimately made the mirror that much better. If there was a scenario where we had a blue-green player that was teched for dogs playing against a blue-green player that's not teched for dogs, that larger list, the one that's not focused on aggro, that one is going to win that matchup probably
Right.
10 out of 10 times. So I think that's the difference here, is that some of these blue-green players, they said, you know what, I'm just going to lose if I play against dogs. And it was the right gamble, because dogs ended up coming in as a 9% meta share initially on day one, or a 9.6% meta share on day one. And then, that actually hugely paid off for them, because then there was such a good discrepancy or disparity between Amethyst Steel and Blurple, which blue-green feasts on both of those as well. So it's very interesting, the kind of the mind games. And I was kind of talking about it. I'm like, I know everybody was gassing up dogs beforehand, but dogs didn't get represented. What ended up happening was, it seems like everybody just teched for dogs, and that just turned into this game where anybody who was playing a more traditional blue-green list had a net advantage across the entire plant, or the entire field.
Yeah, and that's completely correct too. Is, man, I've been talking about it since like day one, dude. This tournament was so hard
So
because you had such a huge meta share, right? And every deck feels good. This game right now feels incredibly fun to play, right? Like, no matter what deck you choose, there's like 10 good ones. You pick one, you're like, oh, this deck is awesome. I'm doing things. But in a tournament this large, with so many decks represented, it is a huge gamble no matter what you pick, right? So you sit down, you have to hope that you have a good matchup in front of you. You have to hope you draw well into that matchup, right? So I just think this game was super hard. Like, I picked red purple going into the event. I was pretty confident I would play against a bunch of dogs, right? I was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna play
just dogs
against
everywhere.
dogs.
Yep.
But dogs only ended up being like just shy of 10% of the meta share, right? So my chances of playing a dog's basically 10%. So I didn't play as many dogs as I wanted. But also, you have to draw well in your games, right? I was really sad with my record on day one, right? I started the day off 0-2, and then I was pretty much out of contention for top 32 with a record like that. You'd have to win the next, what is it, 10 rounds in a row?
Yeah.
But, and then Ekroth said something to me. Shout out Ekroth. He said, dude, it's so hard because there's red purples that are X1 right now. And I was
Right.
like, you're right. There's red purples that are undefeated right now, when he said that to me. And then taking that further, I was like looking at the highest placing like red purples, right? My deck was like four cards, maybe 5, off of the highest record red purple. He went 9-2-1, right? And I was like, that's just so hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's all just what you see, what you play against. Like,
just bad
if
luck,
you hit your bad
honestly,
matchup,
right?
hit your good matchup, and then if you draw well, right?
Yep.
And it kind of sucks sometimes. You play like that, takes the player skill out of it a little bit. So you can't get too hard on yourself with an event like this. But
Yeah.
there were some familiar names in the top tables, and there were some familiar names that whiffed the top tables, right?
Right.
Like, everybody's surprised that Ed did not make it in. You know, like, everybody's surprised that like, there's a bunch of names.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many
we're-
names of like players that you're like, oh wow, that's such a great player, and they still don't make it into these semifinals, finals, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Fungus. We know he's a good player, but have we said his name at any other DLC? Really? Like,
No, everybody just talked about his stats after. I don't know if you saw like the Twitter post that like he was like
No.
he played 800 games of best of 3 like in preparation for the DLC, and I'm like, well, it's no surprise he won. 800
Yeah.
games is so many.
You know so many lines at that point, and you know,
Yeah,
it's
like, you're the expert.
dude. Jacob told me the same thing right before the CCQ. He said, I played more Lorcana over the last 3 months than I've ever played in my entire,
Yeah.
and that was right before he wins the CCQ Salt Lake City. So the answer to the question is, you know, you have skill expression, you have just playing a lot to kind of find lines that people don't think exist, but then it all also boils down to, what is your matchup, right? And
Yeah.
the question I have for you is like, what matchup do you think felt the worst as a Ruby M player?
Well, there's not a real like blue green is the worst matchup, right? That's
Yeah.
what I don't want to see. It just kind of feels like so much has to go right.
Yeah.
So I started the day off 0-2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what I sit down across from in my round 3?
Blue green.
I sit down a guy in a team jersey playing
No.
blue green. I was
No.
like, this has got to be the worst odds in the room,
Oh my
right? Because I was like,
God.
not only am I X3 or like X2 about to play like the bottom, I'm like literally almost the last table, right? There's one table behind me for, and then I have to play against like somebody on a team that's playing blue green. Like, what happened to this guy that he's down here?
That's crazy.
But I ended up and it's funny, like he just high rolls the crap out of me game 1. He has the exact like the turbo amazing opener in blue green where you just like you get the Clarabelle or no sorry, you get the Prince Philip shift.
Yeah.
Kill your board, next turn bend. Like that was what happened to me game 1. I was like,
crazy.
okay,
You're like,
my tournament's just over.
Yeah.
My tournament's just over. He's just gonna do this to me next game. Like, so I started like game 2 of that match like super on tilt just because I was like, this is the worst tournament I've ever performed at. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But then I ended up getting the reverse 2-0, and that's what started
crazy.
like.
That's a very big sentiment for your resilience, because I can honestly say, in that moment, I don't know if I would have been able to keep myself composed to be able to handle coming back on that, coming down from 0-1 and trying to win 2-0 against a deck that I'm actually kind of concerned about. That's pretty impressive, dude. You should take that as a huge win.
Well, it started like my mental resurgence too, because I was like, all right. 'Cause as soon as I like looked at my opening hand game 2, I was like, okay, we have a chance as long as he doesn't do the thing. So he didn't do the thing. I think that game I just put a bunch of stuff in the library, and by the time he Philipped me, I was like, okay, I can just refill the board.
Yep.
And then game 3, he just bricks. So I was like, okay, I got saved. Game 3, he bricked. Whatever.
Score. He deserved
But
that one
no,
after
what was
his game 1 ridiculousness.
what was really hard for me was I had 0 2-0s or 0-2s, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the entire tournament. I took every single game to game 3.
Yep.
And then the reason it felt so bad for me was because like I just felt like I had a curse on me in game 3. Like my opponent would do crazy stuff. Like my second round, I played against Purple Steel, and we both had 0 cards. My top deck's a Tinkerbell, his top deck's a Doc, right? I'm like, okay, you just lose those. That's just no good player can't like, maybe I could have made a play earlier in the game that gives me more cards for advantage, right? But like it's so hard to know in the moment, and it's like when you start spiraling and going on tilt. So same thing in game 1, I played against the Mirror, went to game 3, and same scenario. Like my top deck's a Palace Guard, and he goes Horseman. He draws for turn, plays Horseman, draws for turn, plays Horseman on a Genie Elsa. I was like, okay,
that's insane.
That sucks. Game 3, this is like the last thing you want to see. So I started my day off like just really unfortunate game 3s, and there's no way. There's this. You gotta like you got to understand that there's nothing you can do about that. Your opponent can sometimes just draw better, and if it happens back to back, you just got unlucky. Like it's really hard to play out of those scenarios too. And I'm a player that I just really like to analyze what I do after each game, and I've really had to like I'd really be careful because there's nothing I could have like. 3 Horsemen just beats my deck. Like,
well, it's like I was playing.
What could I have played?
I was playing a game against what is it? The yellow blue like ramp deck, and they were, I'm playing dogs, right? And they're yellow blue ramp deck. I played them 3 total games. I took it to 3 games. Game 1, they ended up beating me because they got Hades, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what do I do, right? I have a Chromacon down. You get 3 Hades in a row, and I can't do anything about that, and I can't finish off the game. Whatever. I was still kind of in a position to win that game. Next game, I just dump truck them. I just go crazy, 20 lore before they even have 2 characters down on the board. And then the third game, and that game, they still ended up getting 3 Hades as well in that game. So they were still kind of like stopping me somehow. And then I get to game 3, 4 Hades that game. I'm like, okay. I'm like, if you're going to get friggin' 3 Hades every game, or 4 Hades in the final game, beyond that, I'm like, that's insane odds for you to get that many Hades across 3 games. Like, that's just nuts. So.
Yeah, it just sucks. Like, too, I was like, if I would have seen a Lumiere, like that, just none of that would have happened to me. Like I probably win that game because he has 3 dead Horsemen in his hand. But
they're just
I didn't see a Lumiere, so I just lose the game. Like that was the kind of thoughts I was having, and it was just like, well, you'll have that sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah. And I think it's actually kind of refreshing to look at those. And that's where I like to look at the matchups that I know are bad for me and take those as moments where I can give myself a break. If I know I lose it, like when I'm playing dogs and like I get matched against Amethyst Steel and they beat the crap out of me, I'm like, all right, I'm supposed to lose this matchup. Like this is a matchup that is not favored for me. I can win it, but I'm not gonna. And honestly, I take my chances during some of those games too, right? I go and I make more greedy plays, or I make something a little, and maybe that's just not good play in some cases, but I like to do that because I'm like, all right, I know if I play this straight up, it's probably not in my favor. But if I start doing some nifty stuff that they're maybe not prepared for, I could possibly pull this out of the bag. So, but it's still refreshing to just say like, okay, I lose that matchup. That's fine.
Yeah. So. But that just goes to show that like you have to, so much mental goes into these events too. Like
absolutely,
you have to battle back from like unfortunate situations and just have resilience.
Dude, after day 2, because I mean technically it was day 2 on Saturday. So after judging all day Friday and then judging all day Saturday, I was in the lobby of the hotel that we were at. All the judges were there like meeting and having pizza or something. And I went over to like just chat with them, just be like, oh, what's up guys? How's it going? And I was like talking with them and they were asking me questions and I couldn't string together sentences. Like I couldn't say words. And I'm like, this is a problem. Like this is how I am right now. I'm so mentally and physically exhausted that I can't even talk to these people about what I'm doing tomorrow because I don't, and it's, it's midnight at this time. I'm tired. I'm just ready to go to bed. And it is, everybody, oh, well, you're just sitting down playing cards. No, you are taxing the crap out of your brain all day, all day long.
Well, and one thing I want to talk about with these DLCs too is we've got to have like a system for ending the round quicker.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like the time in between when time is called and the next round starts cannot be 45 minutes going forward. I think that does so much damage to people's mentals in between game.
Yep.
Like, for example, I get a bad beat game 1, right? Round 1. I'm like, oh, if I just would have had Lumiere, I would have not got beat by the Horsemans, right? I have to sit with that for like 45 minutes while people are just like, they call on the intercom 3 times like, hey, so-and-so, report your round, please. Yep. And then 10 minutes later, so-and-so, report your round, please. For a player like me, that's damaging because I'm just sitting there stewing over my loss, right? Yep. I need the next round to start so I can get a distraction from the bad mental I just had, right? And that's not just me either. Like, even if you win, you've got momentum, you just won. Like, all of that can go away if you sit for 45 minutes doing nothing and you just like can't get back into the rhythm of playing a card game. So we were talking about that a lot. Like, we need some sort of system. Like, you get one warning through the intercom, and then if you don't like submit your match, like I feel like we should start giving out like double match losses. Something. I don't know.
I don't know exactly.
It's hard because Lorcana's built itself like it's the game that doesn't do that, right? It's kind of like it's the more forgiving card game, right? You get the takebacks and everything. So I don't think they want to push like that.
Well, let me drop some. I do have some stats from like the round times. So they shared this with us as the staffing people. So for day 1, turnaround average was 26 minutes, which that was rough in comparison to DLC Milwaukee. Milwaukee was actually faster. So I mean, it was good according to, 26-minute average is technically good according to pastimes. That said, I think closer to 20 minutes would be the appropriate time frame because 5 minutes over the course of 8 rounds is almost an hour. And that's a lot of time to be just sitting around idle doing nothing. And it's tough.
Yeah, we had almost a full event, like on top of the full event we did,
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is normally as the day goes on, it starts to pick up speed, which is nice. And usually
you get a reduction.
Yeah,
the first 4 rounds are always the longest, and then the last 4 rounds are always the shortest.
Yeah, and I mean, there was, like I said, there was scenarios where that goes quicker. The problem that I kept seeing, and I think it's a twofold situation. It always comes back to this with everything with me. I'm always blaming both players and officials because the officials have to communicate with the players. Players I don't know how many times I heard it over the course of the DLC. Oh, the judge was right there and they were submitting a result, so I thought they submitted the result.
Yeah.
The judges or the lore guides, even though they're sitting there, they have to communicate and engage with the players. Hey, I'm putting it in on my end. You have to put it in on your end because we're taking your result before we're taking my result. My result is if we've waited, X amount of time, we're going to take whatever the judge's result was in Purple Fox. And that's technically how it's all supposed to work, right? The judge sits down at your table when you go to turns and they're watching the game like a hawk, and then it ends, and then they submit a result in Purple Fox because I'm sure if you're a player that went to turns, you heard them say who won, what was the, was it 2-1, was it 2-0, who's the victor, so on and so forth. And then they'll submit a result on Purple Fox. The players still have to submit their result on RPH because that's the preferred way for that interaction to happen. That said, to your point, Sam, there has to be like, hey, we've called you twice and you haven't given us information. We're taking the Purple Fox result. That's what we're going to take. But then also that's on the onus for the judge to make sure that they submit it on Purple Fox. So there's some things to like really kind of work that out. And end of rounds for Friday, we crushed it. We crushed it. Like that was the one thing that was tough is that on Friday, we were absolutely destroying end of rounds. We were making it go so quick. And then we get to Saturday and there was just fumble after fumble with end of rounds. And I think that's where.
But then I felt like
it was tough.
Sunday was even worse. Like for the Infinity tournament.
I think the Infinity
Ben
tournament
was saying that they just waited
unorganized.
forever.
I couldn't tell you for sure. That's the thing that was weird is that I've heard a lot of interesting like statements about the Infinity, and I almost expect Infinity to go longer just due to the fact that you have more control level decks in that space.
I mean, yeah, you've got blue steel mirrors probably go forever, but but I think if I just had one negative takeaway from the DLC, it's time in between rounds. And as a player, I'm like, yeah, just give. I don't even think you need to go with. I don't even want to go with Purple Fox. I want both players to get a match loss.
Yeah,
that's what I want to happen because the very second that happens to you, you never do that again.
Yeah, well, and I think it's one of those things where as a player, you really need to just and like I said, it goes back to the lore guides also need to communicate, hey, submit your result. Like, but there's been so many times where I've been like, hey, can you submit your result? And the player's like, yeah, I'm getting to it. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be a dick. Everyone's waiting on you specifically. Yeah. like the whole room is currently waiting on you. 2,000 people are waiting on you to submit your result. So can you please submit it? And then you also have I don't know how many times I heard Speedy come over the microphone or Judge Phil come over the microphone and say, submit your results. And you're just like, guys, come on. Like, I get it. We're playing a game. And I think Saturday, the other problem that is worth noting is that Saturday, the internet was potato all day.
Yeah, it was pretty bad in the room.
Yeah. And I think that was because there was a cheer competition as well, because on Sunday, it was fine. So we had the Saturday cheer competition that really kind of ate up all the internet bandwidth. And, I couldn't Google anything on Saturday, right? And like you barely could get into RPH. And I think that's probably what most of the players experienced. So I think there's some extenuating circumstances that created that end of round situation. But to your point, there is ways to make it still pretty smooth. And I don't know if we were taking advantage of that.
I just think it's really frustrating as a player when you're in the moment. It's less frustrating now when you go back and think about it, right? But as a player in the moment, it's really frustrating to hear the same, like 20 minutes apart, you hear the same intercom announcement. Yeah. Dude, just punish them in a way. Like do anything other than announce, because obviously they're not in the room. Like
clearly they're not listening at all. Yeah, they're not listening to you at all. So yeah, I think there's stuff like that. I had similar situations with like on-demand or scheduled side events when I was running those on Saturday, because I wasn't even around the DLC all day Saturday. I was running scheduled side events, and it's funny because you pay $30 for this starter deck tournament, and then you just don't show up. And you're like, what is going on here? And so I'm at the starter deck tournament, and I got 6 empty seats, and I'm like, well, should I start? And they're like, well, I guess. And so then I have to go and drop these players, which dropping people in RPH is a pain. And so I have to go drop these players from the tournament. Otherwise, we have 5 million buys to start the day, which that feels bad, right? When you like paid for a starter deck tournament and oh, I'm just gonna sit here for an hour. Like that kind of sucks. It's good because you get your 1,000 ticks, you get your win. You're pretty stoked about that. But yeah, I think it's tough because there's just a player attendance challenge. And to your point, if there was a better punishment for player attendance, like I don't know, dropping from the tournament is what ended up happening there. And so it is.
But I just go back and think like if you give a match loss to a person who did not report their round, once word gets out of that, everyone's gonna be
freaking out about making sure their reports in, and they're gonna probably
like, did you report? Did you report?
Yeah.
Like report or we both lose. Like
and they're gonna probably
like,
double triple check to make sure that like it actually got in. So
like it just needs to be enforced once, and then nobody will do that again. Like that'll be the talk of like, did you hear about the double match loss? Like
that's crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But also there was like a couple times where over the intercom it was literally just one set of names. Like I feel like if you're just waiting on one singular table, you just like take the purple fox and move on. I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's like a group of 5, like that makes sense. Like wait for some results. But if it's like consistently just one table,
well, and that's always a head judge call.
You want to be fair.
The head judge has to make that choice of how they want to handle that situation, and you obviously don't want to have a worst case scenario where like purple fox is wrong or something crazy like that, right?
But like I don't know. Over the intercom, you could be like, if you do not report, we will take what
this is the match result we're gonna put in, right? Like that would be. I agree. I think that's a really good way to handle it. So I'll pass that feedback along too, because I think that's important to note. And then the one piece that I think is also awesome, or the feedback that I think was received from Milwaukee was everybody got their ticks at the table. That was amazing in comparison to get your ticks at the table for the Friday event. And then I know that they didn't do it for the Infinity Spectacular, but they also did it for the Mega Prize, which, that was pretty awesome. Well, no, they didn't do it for the Mega Prize. Mega Prize was after results, right? Anyway. So, but yeah, for the Friday event, that they got ticks at the table. For all of the side events, they got ticks at the table. Like, it was really well done, and the lines at the end of the tournament were beautiful.
Crazy.
They were like, in comparison to, like, let's think about Milwaukee. That line to get your Infinity Spectacular in comparison to like picking up your Mulans or whatever at Milwaukee was so much smaller, right? But they still got big. Yeah, it was a fun event. I mean, I loved all of it. I think it was crazy because I thought Milwaukee players got their money's worth. I think they stepped up Richmond in a good way. I think they found a way to step it up. They had a viewing area, which was huge, right? You could actually go and sit and watch the matches that were on stream instead of having to watch them on your freaking phone.
The little area with the puzzles and the crayons and the
they had
coloring books. That was awesome.
They had the little sensory area. They had, the artists. Artists are amazing again. Matt Ang, way to go! You guys did a great job.
Always shout out Matt Ang.
Always shout out Matt Ang. That was amazing. Artists were there. It's crazy to me, and every time I went to Milwaukee and I was like, oh well, do you have to pay to see the art? No, you don't. You get to just go and get your signatures, meet these artists that create this great artwork for this game that we all love. It is really cool addition to every DLC. Having the on-demand side events in a separate room was actually freaking awesome. That was one of the coolest things. It sucked that the room was like 500 yards away, but ultimately that was due to unforeseen circumstances because there was multiple rooms there at the event center that were under construction.
Like it'd be cool if it was right next door, but still the fact that it was like you picked up your badge at a different location and you like did the on-demand stuff at a different location, I think that helped drive numbers for on-demand too, because you're there for on-demand,
right?
Like that's what you're there for. So people are just kind of grinding in that room. Like it becomes a lot more social in that aspect. And I thought we went and we caught one of the Sunday drafts on the on-demand. It ended up being a pretty cool time.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Yeah,
it's a really good way to like grind tickets too.
Yeah, and they actually adjusted the pricing really good for the
Mhm.
tickets and the pricing for the tickets as well. But yeah, the pricing on the prize wall, I didn't hear anybody complain about how expensive things were. The only thing that did suck was that they ran out of obviously the hot ticket items like the Simba mat and the Let It Go promos and the
Do you know how much of that was due to the like the what do they call it, the something, what was it on
the
Sunday?
collector quest.
No, it was the other thing that they
Oh
did
yeah,
retroactive pricing.
it could have been. I don't know. Did they offer the Simba mat in the mega prize?
Yeah, if you had a certain record, you could choose between Mulan or Simba.
Okay, so yeah, I mean it possibly because what they adjusted the mega prizing after they checked their stock and made sure that they had enough to at least issue the prizing to all the player result. But yeah, it is possible that that had an impact on the Simba mat. I mean, I heard so many people are frustrated about the Simba mat. To me, it's tough because if it's not a limited item, then how does it become a an
Good
achievement
item.
to get,
Yeah,
right? Like
I understand.
it's frustrating for people who are like, "Oh, I just finished my affinity event. I just got my 30,000 or my was it 28,000 ticks? Yeah,
Yeah, like 18,000 or
eighteen
something. I don't
thousand
know.
ticks. Yeah, it was 18,000 ticks. I just got my 18,000 ticks, and I wanted to get the Simba mat, and it's gone
But
now.
I can't now.
And I was just like, I get that, but like, I don't know. Like, get the ticks faster, I guess. I
I
don't.
don't it's tough when you have an event like Infinity that gives the perfect amount, but then you run out of stock. You're like, well, I was never gonna get that in the first place because I had to play in your event. So like that frustration makes sense to me.
Yeah,
But also,
they talked
like,
about like
I don't know. I
saving
feel like
some
they
for
should set
later.
aside.
Yeah,
They should just set aside maybe like 10 for when the Infinity like round ends, and then the people that get in line from Infinity might have a chance to get some, right?
or you just work that into the prizing, right? Like I think that's the
Sure.
other solution is just to say, well, this is part of the prizing. That way,
Yeah.
you know it's not going anywhere because it's part of the prizing. But like there was a
Mhm.
guy, he made day 2 in the DLC and he shows up and he's like, they told me they were going to save me a Simba mat. And I'm like, well, that's wild. But
That's never.
it was like there's no chance someone's going to like put one aside and just be
Yeah.
like, here's your Simba mat. Like that would have been
I think
crazy, but
it's really hard to solve the problem of the last tournament of the event, right? Because prizes will naturally just deplete over the weekend. Like,
and the
I don't
best
know.
ones
It's
are
tough.
going to deplete faster than the
Yeah.
and it's like you could also just be like, well, we're going to release 10 the first hour. We're going to release 10 the second, like so on and so forth. But I don't know if that
Well,
even like solves the problem, right?
our group got literally the last Let It Go in the room. Like
Let's go.
they picked it out. They were like, "This is the last one we have." So we were like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
that's actually pretty crazy."
Yeah. Well, and the reason why the Let It Goes were so limited was because of that collector
The
quest.
collector's a quest
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was negative feedback on Friday from me included that you get an OP kit promo after spending $25 and performing a collector quest. And I was like, I
Yeah.
have a literal page of these promos.
I
That
think it
were,
was cool that they gave out the promos,
yeah,
but it all just goes to show they're ramping up every time. Like
yep,
these are improvements over like
yeah,
I don't know if anybody listening went to like DLC Chicago or like one of the first DLCs. Like these DLCs are huge improvement.
yeah.
Like you can't even
And
I
that's
can't
what I'm
even put
saying. You
into
can't
words
miss
the
really,
difference.
right? Like you spend the
Yeah,
money, you get your money's worth. You're gonna go to this
yeah,
event. You spent $75 as a competitor. You spent $25 as an attendee. Like
hmm
that is crazy amount of value for
yeah.
what you spent as those. And I mean, obviously, you have to sit and
Like the
do
stuff
stuff,
they're
but
giving you now is like worlds above what they were giving you in the past, and
absolutely.
I understand that it sucks to like not get your prize or whatever, the one
Mhm.
you wanted, but like the fact that it exists now and it's like easier to get, it's like all of these things are improvements on what has been in the past, and the only shame I have is that there's not more DLCs.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing
Like
is like
that's the what we
that is
really
the
need to talk
huge
about is
problem, right? We need more
yeah.
DLCs. We need more attendee badges. I think they reduced the count of attendee badges for this event specifically. So I think more
Also,
attendees would be
I'm
great.
really interested in how Ghent the format's gonna feel.
Hmm.
So our whole group's playing on Friday, right?
Yeah.
So our day one is Friday,
Hmm.
and there's a separate day one on Saturday, but we don't have to play on that. we just get to play side events all day Saturday.
That's so cool.
I'm really interested in how that's going to feel as like a competitor.
Hmm.
I bet it feels amazing.
I bet it does too, because it really just breaks up the level of like, I guess, the mental exhaustion that you can run into. Because if you're like,
Yeah, you get to separate it. Like
yeah,
even if we make day 2 on Friday, right? We get a whole day to mess around,
yeah,
play inside events, get tickets, whatever, have fun,
yeah,
and then you play on Sunday. I think it's gonna feel crazy.
yeah, and
And
I
the same
mean,
thing in reverse for the play. Like some
yeah,
people want to play on Saturday, so they get that momentum into Sunday, right? But then they have all of Friday to do whatever they want to.
yeah, and I think
I
it
think it's
really
cool.
just breaks up the event for a competitor, because right now it feels like competitors show up, and that's what Friday did for competitors this time too. Was like you had that Friday event to kind of, I don't know, shake off the cobwebs and then
Hmm.
go on Saturday, Sunday. But it's going to be really cool as a competitor to be like, oh well, I can actually like break up this slog of a tournament with some craziness, right? With some 2v2, right, Sam? Like,
Yeah,
I know
dude, the
you and
2v2.
Omar love the 2v2. Like, there's things that like you can do that really kind of solve that whole like this is a job situation, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not you're going there to have fun realistically, but when you're playing in
It
the,
brings the event back, right? It
yeah,
gives you like you're going to this thing for an event. You're not going to like at the end of the day, you go because you want to win the tournament, right? You want
right,
to do well, you want to like the personal achievement, but also they're putting on like it is a something to go and to experience.
mm-hmm.
And I think giving players more time to experience the event helps in the long run. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to go back so bad to a DLC. I thought I had the most fun, even though I did the worst I've ever done at a competitive tournament in my life. I want to go to a DLC next week. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way.
Like, and
I
that's because
feel,
I got to experience all of the things.
and I feel as a judge too, this DLC was more rewarding than Milwaukee as well. Like I think they found ways to improve the quality of life of judges and really
Hmm.
kind of give us a lot of agency, and we had lots of fun. Like I was able to spend time and go get enough ticks to get a hat. So
Yeah,
finally got
awesome.
the Ravensburger DLC hat, and I've wanted it ever since I joined the game. And so that was really cool. I was even able to get one of the promo Simbas. So yeah,
Yep.
it was all good all the way around. We had
I was
fun.
able to walk away with the thing I wanted most was an Elsa pin. Got that day 1,
Let's
so I
go.
was like, okay,
Let's
cool.
go. Problem solved.
Got that, walked away happy already, and then I got to play in the tournament and still got a Elso promo, Mulan promo. I got the Mulan promo from doing go get 3
Get
wins in
three
the main
wins.
event,
Yep.
and then doing random other stuff. Got the Elsa, so
Yeah. And I mean,
pretty
if
happy. But
for as much as people were upset that they didn't have the Simba mat available, I actually kind of think the Mulan mat's prettier than the Simba mat, in my opinion. I think
you
the
think
Simba
so?
mat's cool,
I think
but
I
like,
think they're both like just a treat to get. I think the
absolutely.
foiling's really cool. I like what they're doing with them.
I don't like that the foiling is like raised. That's the only thing that bothers me on it, is that the foiling's kind of like raised up, so your hands kind of
Yeah, so
stick
like you move your
across it.
cards across. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the only thing that I was like, if it was more flat into the mat, that would be nice. But then again, I've never really personally played on like a foiling mat, so maybe that's just par for the course on a foiled mat. I don't
problem is
know.
I haven't played on a playmat for like 10 years.
Oh yeah,
I have
that's right.
we got a spell grounds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's really hard to go back for me.
Yeah,
This
I
is a
completely
texture thing.
understand. Yeah, it kind of gets your brain off, right? I don't know. Just
Yeah.
as long as I have something that makes it so I can pick up the cards, that's all I personally care about.
Yeah, I've done a couple set champs where I'm like, I'm gonna try a like polyurethane mat or whatever they are, but every time I'm like, I'm going back to Spellgrounds.
You're like, no, it's not happening. Well, I mean, we're gonna post a lot of really cool data on DLC win rates, DLC conversion rates. I think the overarching results of the DLC was very similar to what we all expected.
Mhm.
Um, and it all came back to, I think, the same conversation we've been having this entire set, which is play what you're comfortable with, because and be unabashedly what that deck is. I think that's the
Yeah.
additional feedback I have from the DLC is, if you try to jack of all trades your deck too much, you are going to be a jack of all trades, master of none kind of
Hmm.
situation, where you're going to have a lot of games that you're slogging through, and especially in larger tournaments, that's less beneficial. In your set champs, probably fine, honestly.
Yep.
Like being a jack of all trades in your set champs, that might be worth it, because you can surprise that dog's deck with, an Under the Sea on turn 3, or you can do something crazy with your control list and be able to do something a little bit more conducive to win. But at these bigger tournaments, I think you just have to find your lane and know your lane and play your lane and hope for the best.
Find the deck you like, play to its strengths.
Yep. Look for the strengths in it, look for the weaknesses. If it's a weakness that's too much weakness, don't ever try to tech for it, because if you improve that 46% win rate to a 48% win rate, that's also going to decrease your 52% win rate down to a 50% win rate. So you have to figure out where your give and takes are in those. And I think that's what we saw from Fungus and Sky, was that we saw 2 players that just said, nope, I'm going to lose against the dogs if I ever get matched up against it, which apparently they either didn't, or I don't even know if they even had any losses. Did they have a loss?
I think both of them had at least one. Nobody went undefeated, so.
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely a very
and I'm pretty sure it's 2 dogs.
Yeah, it had to be, right? It was definitely a very healthy meta across the board. Super proud of Ravensburger at building this meta right now that currently exists. Winter spell announcements can't come fast enough. I'm so excited to see what those
look like. We're going to have a lot to talk about coming up.
Heck yeah, that's for sure. It's going to be great. And I mean, hopefully we can get into some of those situations. Reminder for the winter spell stuff, right? We don't offer any financial advice, but we're going to say crazy stuff like get a playset or, whatever. Like, it might be worth doing. I know for me, I'm personally, when winter spell drops, dude, I'm going to try and get a playset of all the legendaries as soon as possible and just go.
I have to prepare for Ghent, so
that's right.
I gotta just buy everything.
That's right. Well, you got a whole community behind you guys. So how many of y'all are going to Ghent?
Man, quick math in my head, like 6.
6. Wow. Well,
I think it's 6. It might be 7. I think it's 6.
Oh, and I mean, speaking of community, so first off, I want to say you have a whole community behind you guys going to Ghent. We're all cheering for you. So if there's stuff that I can do to make it possible, please let me know. Appreciate it. But then beyond that, really want to shout out something that happened during Set Champs at Kayfabe Games. It kind of gets me emotional every time I talk about it, because it was super cool to see the level of compassion within the community, where you had Josh, Yoshi, and you had Jordy, and you had Hector, both Tiggers, and then you had Paul Davis going into top 4. They made top 4. They're going into their top 4 match. Paul had a event where his son was, I believe he was playing a role. I don't know exactly the details there, but ultimately Paul needed to go and support his son. And he said to the rest of the group and said, "Hey, I'll just concede, and you guys can keep playing, have fun. Thanks a lot." That group offered, instead of letting him concede his top 4 chance, they said, "You know what? We'll just wait. You go, support your son, come back, and we'll be here waiting for you to play the top 4 match." And that's what they did. They waited 30 minutes for Paul to go and do that and be there for his son. And I just have to give the biggest props to Jordy, to Hector, to Josh, Yoshi. Time is money. All of us have commitments. All of us have things that we have to do on a daily basis. And, respect of someone's time is what I always try to focus on in my life. And the fact that they were willing to give their time to allow someone to go be there for their child, that's what Lorcana is all about, man. This community here locally, this Utah community, we have the best one for sure. Hands down, I've been across the country playing Lorcana, and I would not want to play anywhere but here in Utah. So I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you for doing that. That was super cool.
The Lorcana community second to none, and I'm proud of the Tiggers too.
Yeah.
Proud of you boys.
Gosh, I mean, just how awesome is that as such a competitive team to show that level of compassion and love for the game. Honestly, that's what it shows. It shows really big love for the game to say that I'm willing to wait so that we can have a match instead of just taking a free win off that. I think good on you guys. Really great. And then obviously, Yoshi, you're not a Tigger, but obviously a great player. We love you so much. Yeah. You freaking crush it, dude, every time you play at any tournaments. And then, Paul, I mean, I think this is the first time I've heard of you and maybe possibly the first time you played in a couple of tournaments, but just know that this is what it's like, man. We love our community. We love our families. We know we all have to be there for each other. All of us, a lot of us have kids. A lot of us have, significant others, wives, girlfriends, husbands. We all have to make those sacrifices to be able to play cards with our family. And it's so cool to see the card players willing to make a sacrifice so that you could be there for your family too. So it's really cool.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all I've got for this week. I mean, sorry to end on a little bit of an emotional note on that, but it is, this game is super fun, and it's become more than a hobby for me. The players have become like a family, and it's really cool to see everybody at all these events. It's good to get to know everybody. It's funny.
The community is the best part.
It's funny to fly to a different state and then see all the people that you see at home.
Yeah, you still have your homies right there.
Yeah, it makes it feel like home, right? It makes it feel like you're not far from home.
Yeah, it's cool. Shout out to all the people I saw in Richmond, Jacob Rasmussen, Nate James.
Yep. No, we got some good pictures. I'm about to post all those pictures. I finally got done with a bunch of stuff coming back from Richmond. My vacation hangover is over. I'm back at it. So I'll actually have some more regular uploads and things like that. So I'll get some pictures out. I took, I don't know how many selfies during the events and grabbed the tickers and grabbed everybody else, and it was fun. So
awesome. Well, let me ask you this before we go. Are you playing in any set champs this weekend?
This weekend, no. I'm personally not playing any set champs. I was going to judge at Game Haven Harriman, but unfortunately they had to cancel their set champs because they did not get a kit. So
yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah, it's tough, but obviously you can't do the tournament if you don't have the stuff to do it. But I will be playing
one, but it wouldn't be great.
That would be crazy. I was like, I don't think I'm going to judge at an event that doesn't have the mat and the promos. That's not going to happen for me. So, but yeah, so I was going to judge today, but can't do that. I will be playing at Sandy for the 24th. So I'll be there playing. Okay. I'm not judging that one. I'm playing. I'm actually going to play. I'm going to pull out the dogs deck.
Wow.
Like I told you guys, if you see me, I'm playing dogs. So look out. What about you, Sam? You playing any set champs?
Yep, I'm going to play today. Still don't know what deck I'm going to play yet. I'm leaning on OTK.
Let's go.
I just want to have fun.
That would be awesome.
Just want to have some fun.
Yeah, might as well, right? Like
I played it in the side event on Sunday at DLC Richmond. I had a blast, dude. The only problem I ran into, I found like the craziest counter to freaking the OTK ever. If they play even a single Goliath, you're just like, oh, my world sucks.
Why is that? Is it just because you can't draw
cards? Yeah, it ended up being this like crazy situation where like I had to keep combo pieces in my hand.
Oh.
And I can't go above that or below that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
so you have like no
either
play.
I had to forego the combo and just play to the board, which sucks against blue steel because you're like, well, they have infinite stuff to deal with my board, or you can just never get it online. So Goliath was a pretty crazy counter, actually. I was having a really hard time against it.
That's exciting. Yeah. And I mean, I saw the Kiwi Birds deck. My wife had me make her one of those, and I've been playing against it with dogs. That thing just trucks dogs because it doesn't care about your Chromacon
at all.
They're just like, I have all this
I'm going left,
man. I just go, and your Chromacon does nothing at that point.
See, that's what that was my whole identity behind playing like red purple at this event, because I was like, I'm gonna play against like dogs, I'm gonna play against this aggro deck, and I just want to beat them. Yeah,
well, and I think that honestly, as much as you had a tough time at the event, it is so there's a chance that dogs could have been a 20% share of the meta.
Oh, for sure. It could have been that I played against 5 dogs the whole day and then just loved my event, but but you take those risks.
Alas, that's how it goes, right? You have to try to play with the craziness. One last shout out from us at Champs, now that we're on Set Champs. One last shout out. Paragon had by far the coolest Set Champs photo that I've ever seen, because they had 8 players show up, and so they played 3 rounds of Swiss. And at the end of it, Hank was the ultimate victor. And so the picture that they posted from Paragon was just Hank holding up the mat in the back with a big smile on his face. And then everybody else that didn't win the mat, they're holding up their promos, but they have a thumbs down. And so it was like the coolest, like funnest picture that I think from a Set Champs. I think if I had to award like funnest picture, I would give it to Paragon at this point, because that was a really creative way to do your top 8 / your victor. And I think that's one of those things that you can kind of only do when you have 8 players show up, right? Like
when it's like
when you're
that
playing
close
top
knit and
four, when
everything.
you're playing final, like you can't really
Yeah.
have all of it all at once. But he's, he's sitting there with the big smile on his face with the mat, and everybody else is like, "Boo!" It's like my
Boo.
wife and son both went to that one, so they got their Daisy promos, but at the same time they had a little bit of a rough day. So my wife was so mad because she was playing blue green, and she's watching she saw the final, and she's like, "This is crap that I'm watching blue green play in the final, and I couldn't hit the combo to save my life."
Yeah.
It's just like, this is so frustrating. So
Just the way it goes sometimes, man. This game can be unforgiving, but
yeah.
cool to see. I love when the community steps up in ways, even small ways like that. It's really fun.
Yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised with the set champs from this set, because I didn't expect a lot, considering that I don't think a lot of people had a lot of drive for the Daisy mat, but they're still finding ways to make this really cool to watch.
Yeah.
So great. Well, I think that's all I've got. Anything else you
Cool.
want to bring up before we bounce, Sam?
No, I'm excited for Winter Spell. You're gonna hear a lot of card reveals from us. We're gonna be talking about how the metagame shapes up and what we kind of expect. So
Yeah.
tune in, keep tuning in.
Tune in here, man. We'll have the news for you as soon as it comes out. And also check on the Discord, check out YouTube, subscribe, all that good stuff. Give us likes, give us thumbs ups, comment.
Yeah.
Spoiler, really big news. Kevin, we're gonna wait for Kevin to come back, but he has some great news. We have a sponsorship from Game Grid Lehigh, and we have some really good giveaways from Game Grid Lehigh. So we're gonna wait for Kevin to come
Good
back.
stuff.
We'll tell you how to get all those giveaways. So tune in next week, and you will get to find out all that cool information.
We're still always looking for ways to give back to you guys because you guys make it all worth it. So
Heck yeah. Awesome. Well, see y'all later. Have a great day.